Okay, so let's talk about what you guys just read. So you've read this 13½ story, and if you didn't quite finish, that's okay. We're going to talk about it. What's this story about? What's happening in this?
A girl going to another girl, 13½.
A girl doing what?
So there's this girl in school that's 13½.
Yeah.
And she invites another girl to her house.
Okay.
No, it's a guy.
It's a girl.
That she's had for since she was 3 dies.
Okay, how many of you guys got to the parrot funeral or the parakeet funeral? Okay, so let's talk about this.
About it.
Yeah, she learns something major that happens to her friend's bird. So what I'd like to do first is I want to just list some of the events in this story
Miss,
as they start.
Can I not listen to the ones that I didn't read?
That's okay. We need to talk about it now because the point of this is to use it as an example for what you're going to do for your own. Okay?
Yeah.
So how does this story start out? I heard Guti say a girl gets invited to...
A girl's house.
Which actually the girl didn't really want to.
Okay. A girl, she gets invited to a friend's house. Okay? And she didn't really want to go, but that's the first thing that we have, all right?
She was surprised she was invited.
Say it again.
She was surprised.
She was surprised. She was like, oh, okay. And then she gets there, and they
It was
sit
a
down.
mansion.
Okay, they what?
Mansion.
It's a mansion. Okay, now we know that. It's a big house, but it's not an event. What's the event where
That's a setting.
When they are talking, when they're going up the stairs.
Okay, so they have a tour. In fact, before that, they even have a snack.
Yes,
Right?
And it's like
Let's have some
on how you
chit-chat.
Malomar.
Yeah, Malamars. They have a snack.
What's a
Then she gives
Malamar?
a tour. It's a candy bar. I think it has marshmallow in it.
No, it's chocolate and inside it's marshmallow.
Is that what that is? That's what I think it is. Okay, so invited to a friend's house. She has a snack. They have a tour. Everything's going great. She even says, let's go see my...
Bird.
Yeah! They go to
Sweet Pete.
the bird, Sweet Pea. Yeah, they go to see Sweet Pea the bird, and then it starts to go bad. What happens?
The
bird
bird
is dead.
dies.
The bird is dead. It didn't die, right? It was already
Dead.
dead. It's not like they walk in and it's like, right? They walk in and things are like dead already. So, oh my gosh, the bird is
Maybe
dead.
the dad killed him.
Yeah, and then the mom reveals the real story.
Oh no, and what's the real story, Gaston?
That
your fourth bird.
when she was 3 years old,
Yeah?
she went to buy a bird. Then after a few weeks, the bird died, and then again the bird died. But the mom didn't want to tell her because she didn't want a 3-year-old and 5-year-old girl to know about death.
Yep.
So then they bought him again. So it's like about
Later,
the 100.
again she died.
The 100.
We have all these different birds,
Four
right?
birds.
Yeah.
Everyone, she's like,
No,
oh,
there are 3.
let's go outside and play. Go get a new bird, okay? So like they keep replacing this bird. So the mom's confession is the birds are all the same.
freaking birds.
Right?
They make a funeral.
Yeah, so then they have a funeral.
And
They do?
They do, they have a funeral.
That's
And
hilarious.
before that even, the girl's like, I'm gonna go, okay?
yeah, she wanted to leave because she was alone in the kitchen.
Yeah, she was like, this is weird. It's like her nightmare, right? She goes to this girl's house, she doesn't really know. Oh gosh, and then the bird dies. Oh gosh, it's even worse. And the mom starts talking to her. What does the
She
mom,
shrugs too much.
what does the mom say when she's trying to leave?
Don't study.
Stay, please stay. So let's say in here, Mom, what says?
No, but
Actually,
Mom and the girl, they both talk about it.
because
Mom,
actually
girl.
what the mom wanted was because she was like Ashley was having a hard time. So what the mom said was, well, it's nice for you to be here because it's good for.
It's calming.
Yeah.
It's nice.
and the girl was like,
Right. So guys, let's pause. We have the funeral. They say, please stay, don't leave. Then after the funeral, what happens?
they say word.
I don't
They
know.
say marry.
After the funeral's done.
Oh.
They have a party.
They're waiting.
Thank goodness she gets to leave, right?
No.
So there's a party. Yes, that's all part of the funeral. It's a weird funeral.
I didn't even know that.
They had like a dance party.
And then the girl, who doesn't really have a name, the character who's the narrator, or I'm sorry, the character who's the main character doesn't have a name. Girl gets to leave, and then at the very end, there's one, and I'm not sure if you guys all saw it or caught
Happy
it.
13th birthday.
It's a 13th birthday, but what is she doing at the end?
She's walking.
Oh, she believes she's
I-
lying.
Yeah, and the girl whose bird died, it's not that she believes that so much, but why would she want to feel like that?
She wants to get there in the sky up with the
Yeah, so she twirls.
What's twirl?
Whoa, what's that?
Yeah,
Okay,
this
she
is-
twirls
Same.
like flying because she wants to be like her bird. Okay? So let's just pause for a second here. These are some of our major events. In fact, in a minute, we're going to take a picture of this and you guys can list it so you don't have to rewrite it when we do our activity for today. So I'm going to back up and talk about what we're doing today. Nico?
Didn't like in the beginning she said like when you're 13 and a half, important things happen?
Yeah. Important things happen. In fact, like going to parties and birds dying. All right, so I'd like for you guys to open the document that's called
I like my voice to do.
What's a Story Arc? So this should be the document that you have open right now. So we did a quick review on the story that we just read in class. Quick review.
My voice is
All right. So everybody has this open, right?
yeah.
Everybody? Okay. So I'm going to have you follow along with this and fill things in. So the first one says, have you seen this before?
Yes.
Zoom in on this. Does anybody know what this is called?
Story arc.
Oh, it's the climax thingy.
It has a climax on it, you're right.
Climax drawing.
Story arc.
Not a triangle, it's not a story arc.
No, it's the
Story
roller
mountain.
coaster.
Mystery had to show us a
Roller
bit.
coaster.
The story mountain.
The Story Mountain is one name for it.
Roller coaster.
Story Mountain. Does anybody know the language arts word for it?
No, I
The fancy word for it?
Story sequence.
Plot,
Plot line.
plot line, or diagram. Okay? So go ahead and put plot line or diagram in there. Put plot line or diagram in there. So the idea here is that a plot line or a diagram, yes, it shows you the events of the story, but what it shows you is the emotional part, tension that's in there.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're like, in fact, what's this part called right here?
Rising action.
The rising action. And how is your reader supposed to feel as this part is happening here?
But the story doesn't have much climax, though.
In this particular story, the climax, this is a simple story for us to deal with for an example, but in a real story it would be much stronger, you're right. Okay?
Like the star llama.
Yes. So in here, this is going up because your reader wants to feel more and more tension. They want to be like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Ah, ah, ah. Okay, happy ending. So that's how what we use this plot line or plot diagram for, because it measures or shows the increase in what? In tension. There we go. Okay. So let's add that to our list right here. Tension. It measures or shows the increase in tension. Okay? It measures or shows the increase in tension. So make sure you have added that to your chart right now. Okay, except we are not making plot lines and plot diagrams today.
Yes.
Boom! You already learned how to do it.
We did.
We're not
It's
doing
like
All right.
we do are supposed to.
So, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about this. The reason I'm showing you this is because this next part isn't measuring tension. It's measuring the rise or the fall in the emotional feeling or positive or negative events that are happening. So I want to show you this thing called a...
Wait, so if you could just read out.
Go ahead and keep it on there because I want to make a comparison between that and the next part. So the next part is what we're learning today is we're not learning plot lines. You've heard of them before. We're learning story arc. All right? And that will show the events also, the same way a plot line does. But it doesn't go more tension, more tension, more tension, more tension. Psh, end. Okay? It's not the building of the tension. It's the, whether it's good fortune, something positive, or ill fortune, something negative, that's happening. All right, so the top it says a good fortune, and the bottom it says ill fortune, meaning bad things. So this is every day. This is every day I go to school. This is every day I feel normal, I feel normal, I feel normal. from the beginning of the book or story to the end. If your whole story is this right here, are your readers going to be excited and happy to read it?
Well, it's not even a story.
Not even a real story, because we need to have some tension in there and things like that. So we need to decide where our events are going to be positive and where they're going to be negative so that we can build that tension. So I want you to look at this now. If I say, you have a cat, and it's your best friend, and you love it so much, and the cat dies. Where on the good fortune and bad fortune would that be? Right here? No? Here.
In the
And it's your best friend.
Okay,
Down here. Did you notice this line? What is this line having to do with?
middle.
This is the middle, but from where in the story? The beginning to the end, okay? So if the first thing that happens in the book is that your cat dies, wow, and it's your best friend, that's pretty low. And then the next day, you win $1 million. Where would that be? Woo! And then later on that night, your parents tell you, sorry, we're having blank for dinner, and it's the thing that you like hate. You want to vomit. Okay? So where on this chart line does that go? A little bit under, okay, maybe.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad, but it's not positive, right? And then your parents say, oh, we're moving away to Alaska, and we're going to live in an igloo, and you'll never see any of your friends again. Maybe down here. It depends.
Negative 100.
It could be. Is it worse than the cat? Or
Yeah.
Okay. It depends on the person or the character.
Actually, you have a cold
If you're listening, clap once. So the idea here is, in a story, to try to figure out from the beginning of the end, what is the arc of our story? What does it look like?
That looks
Because
magnificent.
if you have a story that stays in the middle and nothing really happens, your audience isn't entertained. If you don't give your audience hope that things are going to get better, they're going to stop reading. If only good things happen, there's no tension. Okay, so it's about looking at the mix of where things fall so that we can create that.
The yin and the yang.
The what? The yin and the yang. So, in order to do this, I'm going to show you guys a very famous writer clip. And this particular writer, you don't probably know him, but you will in the future.
Dr. Seuss?
Nope, this guy's name is Kurt Vonnegut, and he's a very, very famous author that many stories are read in the high school here, and even at our school, and in colleges. So his name will come up probably in your future, even if you never want to be a language arts teacher.
Yeah,
All right.
I want to be a language arts teacher.
So he's
My
gonna
future is over there.
He's going to talk about 3 main types of story arcs. Now, there are more than these, but we're not going to tackle them because we're not ready. Okay, that's like doing calculus when you're only taking regular math or pre-algebra. Okay, we're not ready. So we're going to focus on, for our stories, these 3 main types of story arcs. Now, the reason we're doing this is because tonight is the last night that you can change the idea for the story that you've been thinking about writing, because tomorrow, whatever you do this assignment on, the homework for tonight, which we'll get to in a little bit, that is your story. So I've been telling you guys all last week, start getting your stories, start thinking which one you want to use. How many of you guys already know which story you want to write? Okay, so most of us, hands down. If you don't, you need to decide tonight before this homework, because whatever you do this on, this is the one we're taking to publication. We've had several weeks of planning and trying different things.
Are we supposed to already have a story?
You don't have to have it, you just have to have the idea.
Can
You
we
have to know which one.
We can invent.
Well, we've done a lot of practice different things that you could use. If you didn't like any of those, on Friday I even said you could try a new one. The idea was to try to use something or a mesh or a mix of some of those to try to get a story, but if you still don't like it and you need to make a new one, then that could be a possibility. The only thing I need to tell you about your story, only 2 things I need to tell you. It needs to be realistic fiction. So whatever your idea is, as we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, realistic fiction. And the second thing is, it needs to be written in a regular story format, meaning it cannot be written in poetry. It cannot be written in diary entries or journal entries. It needs to be written. Well, that's a different type. It's an alternative type of story, and it is okay to write stories that way, but we're not practicing that for this class. What I found in the past is that it makes it harder for people to elaborate because it's a different day or a different entry, and it makes it harder for people to do a string of activities sometimes. Okay, so I'd like for you guys to scroll down on your sheet. Can I use yours?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like for you to scroll down on your sheet, and I'd like for you to turn, make sure your orientation is changed. Turn so you can see the second page where you have all 3 of the story arcs, like this. Put your iPad straight up so that it's in portrait this way. Okay, here we go. So we're going to play this video. Whoa, volume's off. Here we go.
To some of his theories as well.
Well, there's no reason why the simple shapes of stories can't be fed into computers. They are beautiful shapes. This is the GI axis, good fortune, ill fortune. Sickness and poverty down here, wealth and boisterous good health up there. Here's the very middle. Now, this is the BE axis. B stands for beginning.
What's E stand for?
E stands for electricity. Now, this is an exercise in relativity, really. Is the shape of the curves are what matters and not their origins. So we'll start a little above average. Is why get a depressing person? We'll start... The whole thing, we call this story Man in Hole, but it needn't be about a man, and it needn't be about somebody getting into a hole. But it's just a good way to remember it. Somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. People love that story. They never get sick.
Okay, so that's the basic idea of hundreds and thousands of stories out there, okay? Somebody's having a pretty good experience with something, boom, something bad happens, gets better.
But no, but it has to be a little higher than the beginning.
Right, so he's saying a pretty good time, something pretty good is happening in the beginning, so it's above this middle section, okay? And in fact, the story starts that way, all right? Let's see another one. Question? Hold on, raise your hand. It is, but it's very, very rare because how do you feel when the movie ends badly or your book that ends badly?
Oh my God.
Unless there's a sequel. You're like, I wasted my time on this? Unless there's a sequel. So normally, no, a story does not normally end with people dissatisfied. Now, as I said, there are much more developed types that we are not going to cover right now. 1, because we're 12 and 13. 2, because this is the first lesson you've ever had on story arcs.
We're only 12.
Okay? Some of us are 13. Okay?
We.
And 3, because you need to master these before you move on. It's like I said earlier, you can't try trigonometry until you can learn basic math.
I know.
Johannes.
Yeah, but what is the story? I've seen stories that start like with the character sad.
Aha! You've seen stories where their characters start sad. That one's coming up. So I want you to look at the document that you have and see on there. Hold it upright, folks. Hold it upright. So you see, this is the first one. And he called it Man in Hole. Is that because every story has a man falling in a hole?
No.
No, it's a good way to remember it. Somebody has something good, but their life kind of goes into a hole here. All right? So it doesn't have to be about a man. It doesn't have to be about a hole.
Alexandra Koshan.
So I want you guys to listen to the next one.
All right, not copyrighted. Another story, also a beautiful curve and easily fed into a computer, called Boy Gets Girl, but it needn't be that. Just a way to remember it. Start on an average day, average person, not expecting anything to happen a day like any other. Find something wonderful, just loves it. Oh, God damn it.
Okay, so that's the other one. Nothing important's happening. La la la, middle verb, and then whoa, amazing fun thing. up here, or it could be a low level. But the idea is, from an average day, something kind of cool happens, and then it gets bad. Okay?
I have a question. Why does the name boy?
Boy meets girl? Because what happens when in all your love story movies and books when a boy meets a girl? It's like, I'm fine, and then what?
You get like
There's like hearts for eyes, right? You guys have seen cartoons. So they're saying
Anime.
something average turns into an amazing thing and then falls down. Here we go.
Got it back again. People like that. Now, these are beautiful curves, and this gets a little complicated. Computers can now play chess, so I don't know why they can't digest this very difficult curve I'm going to draw for you now. And it so happens that this is the most popular story in our civilization, Western civilization. As we love to hear this story, every time it's retold, somebody makes another $1 million. You're welcome to do it. Now, surprisingly enough, I've said it's depressing. You know, people don't like stories about below average days and people. But we're going to start way down here. Worse than that, who is so low? It's a little girl. What's happened? Her mother has died. Her father has remarried a vile-tempered, ugly woman with two nasty daughters, big daughters. You've heard it. See? Anyway, there's a party at the palace that night. She can't go. She has to help everybody else get ready. She has to stay home. Now, does she sink lower? No. She's a staunch little girl, and she has had the maximum whack from...
Okay, so here's the idea that he's saying. If you choose to do the story idea that Johannes is bringing up, where it is starting with something negative, is that it's very difficult and probably not ideal, especially for newer writers, to try to have a bunch of things getting worse in the beginning. You should start with the lowest of low. Because at this point, how do your readers feel?
Awful.
God. They start losing hope. So the idea is to start as low as possible. And then in Cinderella, she gets to go to the ball. They give her a dress. They give her all these things. She meets the prince. Can your story stop there?
There's actually a version where the prince badge.
No, just go.
12.
It just goes down.
Okay? And it's got to come back up. But notice here, and he's going to bring this up. When you sink, does she sink as low as she was?
No.
No, because she's got this hope. Her life is somewhat better now that she's got this thing that happened to her. Okay? So I want you to be thinking about how you might build your story arc.
Fate, which is the loss of her mother, is she can't go any lower than that. Okay, so the fairy godmother comes. Gives her shoes, gives her stocking, gives her mascara. Gives her means of transportation. Goes to the party. Dances with the prince, has a swell time. Boring, 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 boring. Now, there's a slight inclination to that line as I've drawn it because it takes perhaps 20 seconds, 30 seconds for a grandfather clock to strike 12. Does she wind up at the same level? Of course not. She will remember that dance for the rest of her life. Now, she poops along on this level till the prince comes, the shoe fits. She achieves off-scale happiness.
Okay. Off-scale happiness means she's so happy it can't even be on the chart.
It means happiness is off the chart.
Okay, so the idea here is we are going to be looking at these and what you might do. Now, you don't have to know yet. You don't have to know right now. But how many of you guys think, based on my story, I want to do the one where man and whole. It starts out positive and then something bad happens and it gets back. Anybody already know they think they want to do this one? Okay,
What?
this one, boy meets girl. It starts off normal and then amazing things happen.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the thing, can it be like just normal and then goes like up and up progressively? That doesn't.
Because what's going to happen to your audience?
There's no tension.
There's no tension,
Well, it's like
and
the
they're
story.
not
you
going to be
just-
excited enough in the beginning. You're going to lose your audience.
so you just-
There are ways to do that, but it's very
Difficult.
difficult, and I want to see that you can master these before you can master that. So if you think that you can, we can talk individually about it. Okay? All right. So the next one is Cinderella. How many of you guys think you want to try Cinderella? And that's okay too. In fact, some of these stories you guys might know from real life stuff. Obviously, you know Cinderella type stories or Matilda. Okay? But I want you to even think about this one, Boy Meets Girl. What's the Fault in Our Stars? How many of you guys saw that movie or read that book? Anybody? The Fault in Our Stars?
That thing is terrible.
A lot of people in my last class said this. In that one, she starts off, yeah, she has cancer, but in her life it's like, it's okay, 'cause that's her normal. And then she meets somebody amazing. Oh, and then he dies. And then it goes back up. Okay? So the idea here is that these are the basic story arcs that you have for a lot of stories. So I'm going to have you scroll down to page 3, the one that says story arc of 13 and a half. Arc in Spanish is arco, right? Okay.
It's never like good. It's like it's okay, nothing special. Then it's like awful.
What is?
Like the cool story for the girl. It's like a normal day.
It's actually not. We're gonna piece it together in just a minute. Okay, so what I'm gonna have you guys do is I'm gonna give you just a second, so that we don't have to write all these because we already wrote them. I'm gonna give you guys just a second. I'm gonna try to take a picture and see if I can pass it to all of you guys.
Yeah, like airdrop.
Yeah.
Because the Mrs. Molly back in those
All right, if you're listening, clap twice. If you're listening, clap once. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for you guys. It's Jack. Okay, so you probably have already put this picture in here of the list of events. You're gonna wait again. When that bell rings, if it's not time, it's not time. Okay, so we have all of these events in here. So let's look at this arc. When she gets invited to the girl's house, is it the best day of her life? No. Is it the worst day? No. So which arc do we have? Man and Hole starts up here.
Boy meets girl.
Okay.
Noah's Ark.
So we have the one that starts in the middle. It's not the best day, it's just a day. Okay?
and you go a bit up.
Yeah, a tiny little bit up, okay? So, you're going to have to abbreviate and write quickly. Gets invited. Or you can draw the arrow, that's fine. Okay, if you're absent today, this is a sped up version of what the class is working on. So, he gets, or she gets invited, then a little bit above that, there's a snack time, then there's a tour of this amazing house that's a mansion, and then, wow, let's go see my bird. Oh, you have a bird, cool. They go see the bird, and then, whoa, boom. The bird's dead when they get there, okay? So this is the fall, where the bird is dead. But that's actually not the worst part of everything. There's kind of some lower points, or equally low points, when the mom confesses and says, actually, there's been more than one bird. There's been about 15 different birds since she was 3, and we just keep buying new ones. And then they say, oh, they're going to have a funeral. And the main character is like, I want to leave, I want to leave. And the mom, don't leave, don't leave, don't leave, stay here, it'll be better. So they ask her to stay. And really, all she wants is to go home. So this whole down part is kind of the lowest point in here. And then the funeral. The funeral is actually not too terrible, because it's kind of like a little party. And then during the funeral, they make some statements about positive words for the bird. But the best part for this girl in the story, the main character, is she finally gets to leave. Because she's been feeling awkward this whole day. So she finally gets to leave. And then along this same line, maybe equal to that, is the other girl, the character who has had the bird that died, Ashley. She does a little bit of a twirl or a flying. Like that at the end, to show that she's thinking of her bird and kind of wishing that her bird would fly off, and she's with her bird kind of symbolically. All right, so we have this line here. Sorry. We have this line here, and our line here shows our story arc. And if you look at the 3 different types of story arcs that we discussed today in the previous part of this worksheet on a video, it says that this one right here, one that starts with average, is the one called boy meets girl. Or it's the second option. But it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be about that. It's where something starts average, gets good, and then we have a plummet. All right? So, with all of that, what the class is doing is going on to the next page. Where we talk about how this story could have been different. How this story could have been different if it was told with a story arc that was Cinderella, or the other story arc, which is Man in Hole. So if we think about the story arc that's Cinderella, where would we have to start that? And as I talked about this with the classes, it means that the story would have to start down, way below in the bad fortune area, the ill fortune, for the Cinderella story. Which means, what's the most negative event here? Probably that the bird's dying, or that the mom says, actually, I've really been buying you a bunch of birds, and it's not the same one, you've had a bunch of replacement birds. So that would have to start the story, and we'd have to figure out from there, okay, maybe the story starts a little bit differently. The same 2 girls, but they're better friends, and one calls the other, can you please come over? My mom just told me that all of my birds have been different birds, and they've been dying for 15 years, and the next one just died. So maybe they hear that. So we think about the girl goes over, maybe she makes it better, we have some fun. Maybe the girl they get to be best friends because of all their hanging out together. They're best friends. And then maybe something else happens. Maybe they fight about something else. So you'd have to figure out how you could rearrange that story. Because when you have a different story arc, it could potentially change what characters are in it, or it could potentially change the events that happen, or maybe it needs to be a flashback of something. So another idea in here would be, how could we start with Man in the Hole? So if we started with Man in Hole, what we would have to do is find a way to start toward the top. Well, what are some of our better events that we're going to be talking about in our event list? It could be that they become best friends, or they meet each other. In the original story, when they first met each other, they weren't really good friends. They were just like, hey, you want to come over? Hey, okay, sure. And they didn't really know each other very well. So perhaps the story starts out, first day of school, they become best friends. They're in the same advisory. They're in the same first class. They're in the same second class. They hang out, and they want to go home, and they've been spending their whole day together, and they're outside, and they're playing basketball, and it's time to come inside, and they say, hey, let's go out to my room, and let's play a game until it's time for dinner, and boom, then the bird's dead. So it could change a lot of these events in here. We'd have to create some more positive events, or we'd have to think of some ways for them to rise up into positive events if we change these arcs. So I want you to be thinking about how your story could look and how it might look different ways. Because you could still tell the same general story, but you would need to maybe take out a few parts, or add a few parts, or put more emphasis on certain parts to change the way the arc looks. All right, so the idea for that was to use the example of the story we read in class today, 13 and a half, to practice here. And to then move down to, and you can see on the next page a sample story, which is a sample arc on your worksheet of kind of all the details that we did. And then to make one for yours. So at the top it says major events. Major events. So just like we did with the first one, you're going to list a bunch of major events that you want in your story. Okay? And it does say you need 10 or more. So on our original one, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Some of my other classes had 12 or 13. So you need to have at least 10 events. They don't have to be major something. It doesn't have to be, I won the lottery. My dad got fired. Oh, my cat died. Oh, I got a brand new. It doesn't have to be extreme. Kind of in our story, some of the main events were going to the house, getting invited, getting the tour, seeing the bird. Some of those were simple events, but they carried to the next stage. So you're going to decide, do I want to have the story like the one we told, Boy Meets Girl, where in the beginning it rises, but then it falls, and then comes back up? Or do I want to have Man in Hole, where I start with something amazing happening, and then clearly, oh, it can't really go any worse before we come back up? Or do I want to start with a Cinderella story, where your life is pretty low as it's going to get in terms of the story, and then it slowly climbs a little bit until something amazing happens? But that amazing can't last very long. A little bit of a dip before you come back up. So you have to decide which one you want to do. You're going to draw your arc. You're going to label on whichever arc you choose, whichever one, your events, and write them in. The same way we did on our practice one. When you finish that part, the last piece of this activity is page 7. And page 7 actually has 2 pieces on it. But the only one I'm asking students to do is the top part. You do not need to do the final check. We will do that in class tomorrow. But you do need to do 1, 2, and 3 on the reflection.